Loving your people is like coming home. No one knows you like family. Until you do, you'll be alone. Loving your people is just letting go of all the lies and the self-hate that you've ever been sold. Love ain't no streets, populous. Love ain't no streets, populous. Brother, you're welcome, brother of mine. The bonds of blood between us transcend space and time. Just love your people and become whole. Find your role eternal as part of the folk soul. Love ain't no streets, populous. 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 Loving your people is like coming home. No one knows you like family. Until you do, you'll be alone. Loving your people is just letting go of all the lies and the self-hate that you've ever been sold. Love ain't no streets, populous. Love ain't no streets, populous. Love ain't no streets, populous. Love ain't no streets, populous.
Welcome everybody to Donald Kent Art. I'm extremely pleased to have with me some very special guests today. Tonight we're dedicating this show to the memory of Jeff Winston, the creator and director of the White Art Collective. We'll be looking back at some of the many great accomplishments and contributions he did for the greater white well-being community. But first, let me introduce my distinguished guests. Mark Collett of Patriotic Alternative. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mark.
Thank you for having me on. It's very kind of you to invite me.
And it's really, really great to have you here. Also, I'd like to announce that I'm going to be starting a regular show with our next guest, Paul from Patriotic Arts Community in the UK. Thanks for joining us, Paul.
Hey, Donald, it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
And then my dear friend, Jay LaDarc from the White Art Collective. She now runs the monthly White Art Challenge. Jay, thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for having me, Donald.
So we all know the news. Jeff has passed away on October 6th. Something that is really amazing and a kind of a positive note to look at is that the fundraiser for Hirath and their child has passed its goal. It's now $20,580. So I feel that this is a tremendous testament to our community and how we've come together in hard times. And 2 years ago, my mom passed away. The LaDarc Collective did a fundraiser for me. I'm kind of trying to give back a bit here as well. So I just think that for starters is something to celebrate. So I wanted to kind of go quickly through and ask each of you if you could share some of your thoughts and memories of Jeff. Jay, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'll always remember Jeff as just being an incredibly thoughtful man. He was always thinking of the other members of the LaDarc Collective. I can't tell you how much work Jeff had gotten me, always supporting my graphics and other work that I did.
Yes.
Getting me work through other people, giving me work himself. Just he worked so hard to organize all of this and to build a community around the arts for, white positive people. And nobody else was doing that at the time. He really lit a flame in us that wasn't there before. And without him and without his presence in this community and all the work that he did, there'd be a serious void.
Oh, massive. Yeah. There's
a void now that he's gone.
Obviously. Yeah. I'm hoping that it's a kind of a catalyst for us to move forward, to consolidate all of our energies and our resources and make make him proud, in terms of like carrying the torch. Let's pass the mic to Mark Collett. What are some of your thoughts and memories of Jeff?
Okay, well, firstly, obviously, it's a truly tragic time. When I heard the news, I called you straight away because I couldn't I find it hard to actually come to terms with the fact that he's gone. Now, I didn't know him on the same personal level as all of you guys. I had the privilege and honor of working with him, and he had been on PWR. I'd worked with him on streams before, and I'd spoken to him behind the scenes a couple of times. And Jeff was always a really, really nice guy. He was always full of energy. He was always full of positivity. And in the time that I spent with him and the time I spent working with him, I never heard him say a bad word about anyone. Right. I was actually, he was just one of those guys, just genuinely kind, decent, good person. And I think that shone through in everything he did. And I have to say that that's how I remember him. Jeff wasn't someone that was all about Jeff. He was incredibly talented. He produced beautiful music. He was a leader. He was a husband. He was a father. But he was somebody that seemed to devote a huge, huge amount of his time to actually helping others, to doing something good for other people. And when he was doing that something good for other people, it was lifting others up. It was promoting other people's work. It was ensuring that people who maybe didn't have the confidence that he did, or that were nervous about coming out in our scene, or who were not quite 100% sure of themselves, that those people would find their voice, would find their feet, and would and could come out and be part of this scene. And when you produce something that's from the heart, when you produce something which is a big piece of you, sort of a piece of art, a piece of music, something that you've poured your heart and soul into, it can actually be very, very nerve-wracking, because you feel like putting that out there, you feel is putting a piece of yourself out there. It's not as easy as some people may think, because you're actually putting something that you poured your emotion. It's not just time, but your emotion, your heart, and you're going to be judged on that.
Yes.
And Jeff had this incredible ability of giving people the strength to do that, and giving people that reassurance that they weren't going to be laughed at, that their contribution to the movement would be loved and cherished, and it is important to everyone else as it was to them. And he had this power to raise people up and to let people's work be seen, and he grew this incredible community around him. And I've got to say that in many ways, I knew Jeff not for his personal work, but because he raised so many people up. And his work was just as much amplifying the work of others as it was producing his own material. And that's such a gift for somebody to have. And he shared that with everyone. And when I heard that he passed away, my immediate thoughts were obviously with Hyrith and with his daughter, because being a father myself, you think of these things. You think of the cherished times you have with your child, how much they need you, and how much how precious and innocent they are, and just how they're so how they need you and their parents so much. And I just feel so heartbroken that Jeff won't be there to see that. But my wish for Jeff is that his work lives on, the White Art Collective lives on, and that one day his daughter will grow up listening to his music, watching the streams that he was on, listening to his body of work and the body of work that he inspired. And I just pray that she will get to know the true beauty and wondrousness and strength and brilliance of our Father through his work. I hope that work lives on, and that she really does benefit from all of the things that he gave to everyone in this community.
So beautifully stated. That's very, very beautifully said. We in the White Art Collective and in the broader community are a living legacy of Jeff. You know, I can say certainly for myself and many others, we wouldn't have come into our own as artists within this time that we're living in this movement. And he really was the catalyst of all that. And so that cannot be, I can't overstate how important and great that is. Let me pass the mic then to Paul, Patriotic. Could you share some of your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit like Mark in that respect, that I didn't really know him personally, but I've known him through others, and especially now reading a lot of people's statements, they're coming out the woodwork, and I mean, the extent to which he's influenced people and had such a strong kind of influence over, you know, it's quite profound, really. And the song that you played at the beginning, it's quite moving, and it seems to sum up you know, the intention that he has for his work. And you know, it kind of speaks volumes, really, that he was there to use his creative talents to serve his people. And yeah, I mean, he's really kind of such a he's kind of almost like an unsung hero, isn't he?
Absolutely.
And yeah. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about his life and all the content that you're going to show. So
that's actually a perfect segue. I'm going to be showing short clips of interviews of Jeff, and we can respond to what he says and give our thoughts on that, respond to it. But let me quickly say that Paul and I are going to be starting a regular show together, an art stream on my channel starting next Tuesday. So there'll be more announcements for that. And also that, again, LaDarc is running the monthly White Art Challenge. She's got big plans with that. And the goal here is really to carry the torch that Jeff lit. So his legacy will live on. And so I would tell everyone in the audience to, please stay tuned, please plug in, get connected with what we're doing. Our cultural health is extremely important for our longevity as a movement. There's a lot of toxicity in politics, and that the fight that that we're waging. So we just want you to know that we have a very lively arts community that is bringing up the spirit, and so it's a beautiful thing. So let's take a minute to look at one of Jeff's interviews, and then we'll respond. So I'm going to put us on mute here, and let's take a look.
My name's Jeff Winston. I'm the founder of the White Art Collective. I'm a musician, filmmaker. I've DJ'd. I've done wedding DJ stuff. I've done DJ'd in clubs. So I have kind of a broad experience, like with different cultural types of events. I've also done some event organizing, and that kind of thing. So like music festivals and stuff like that. Small stuff, but still, in that vein. I'm a Midwesterner from the United States, and yeah, I'm in part of the movement. I'd say dissident right. I would call myself a white nationalist, even though that's a very dirty word at the moment. But I don't care. Screw these people. Um, I believe that, and when I say white nationalist, I want all traditionally white countries to maintain their majorities and their super majorities, and I fully support all of them, including South Africa. They don't have a majority, but I think we should work back in that direction with them. But yeah, just I started the White Art Collective because I saw, and I actually saw this before I was even really fully red pilled. I saw a need for artists to organize, because we're just kind of often kicked around, whether by the business side of things or kind of just by society in general. We provide a lot of things of value, music, film, and all these things that people enjoy, and then the business industry kind of kicks us around, and we don't get our fair shake money wise, and sometimes kind of looked down upon by society, as though being an artist is not a good uh, a respectable trade, basically. But that's kind of a modern concept. I want to get back to a type of artistry where basically an artist is kind of a tradesman. You're taken more seriously because what you do has serious implications in society at large. And in that way, I think I'm in alignment with people like Brendan Hurd, who's written a book and who's in the movement. His book's called The Decline and Fall of Western Art. And he kind of gets at the roots of how the modernist, i.e., the communist, infiltrated our art and kind of started. That's really the place where they first started imposing this idea of non-judgment, which is essentially the idea of this, equality, that and there can be no level of discrimination. They kind of first entered that into our consciousness via art, and they did it with art and art criticism. So I kind of think we need to reverse engineer that process in a way, in order to legitimize our artistic movement. And essentially, I think we need an artistic renaissance of romanticism and realism to really get back into a healthier mode as a society and as a civilization as well. I think a lot of times when these kind of things, these kind of revolutions happen politically, there has to be a cultural wing to it as well. And that's really what I'm focused on. So I started the White Art Collective, just because I was so tired of these attacks on our culture and our art. And I saw the need to bring people together so we can also leverage our very limited resources. I mean, Hollywood has millions and millions of dollars to throw away on ridiculously crappy movies, and the music industry puts out garbage, but it's all really highly produced. So, I'm trying to get our people to come together to help each other collaborate and create things better than the sum of the individual parts. And I think we've definitely been achieving that. On our show, Saturday Night Live Stream, we feature, which is on the White Art Collective YouTube channel, we feature artists. We have a lot of musicians. I'm working with probably like 25 to 30 different musicians and groups. And we also feature like visual artists. I'm trying to do that more often, feature more visual artists on there. And we've got writers in the White Art Collective as well. I want to start featuring some of their stuff. But we did have No White Guilt and The Great Order on there probably a month and a half ago or so, and they featured some of their poetry and some of their writing, so that was cool. So we have done some of that, and we have also featured visual artists as well. I'd like to get some more comedy, because I try to keep it an entertainment show, and it's called Saturday Night Live Stream. I'm kind of trying to co-opt that time slot and that concept back to our side, because the Saturday Night Live, the big time one, uh, it's always been kind of subversive, but it's definitely completely subversive at this point. And basically, we want to take that back. But yeah, so I'm bringing people together for collaboration and preservation, and I think we're starting to really take root. I think we've developed a strong community of people. Like I said, uh, I've probably got 30, 40. No, it was probably more like between 40 and 50 like artists and allies that I'm working with, creating on different projects, doing different things. We're also even working on organizing traditional dances, and I've put together a team behind the scenes. We're working on that, and we're putting together a like a little kind of manual on how to organize an event like that. Like I said, I have some event organizing experience, but I think that's another important cultural element. So I'm kind of very broadly, it's artistically based, but just broadly trying to cultivate culture anywhere and everywhere I can.
Right on, man. So
that's quite astonishing that he's accomplished so much, that he's tried to accomplish so much. And one thing I wanted to jump in real quick to say here is that next Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, I will be having a stream for the White Art Collective members to come on and commemorate and pay homage to Jeff, share their work. We'll look at some more media that he's produced. I feel that they need their own show to, kind of come together as a family, kind of grieve together and celebrate together the great things that he's done. Let me start with Mark. Would you like to share some thoughts on Jeff's comments?
Yeah, I think Jeff was clearly a very, very ambitious man, and he saw this big picture of what was possible. And I think in the movement, that's so important, because we do genuinely lack that. There's so many people in the movement who get black pilled, who see a small picture, who don't seem to think that anything of note can be really achieved, because everything's doom and gloom and it's all over, and the end is nigh. But Jeff had this completely different view of the world. He had a view of what was possible, what could be done, how we could work together to lift each other up and to create something huge. He wasn't content with doing something small. He had a grand vision, and you can hear the positivity in his voice. And it's that very positivity that I feel inspired so many people to get on board with the White Art Collective, to get on board with Jeff's ideas, and to come out of their shell to achieve more than they maybe otherwise would. And Jeff oozed positivity. As I said, I didn't speak to him many times off stream, but when I did, he was always so very, very positive. He was always somebody that was 100% brimming with positivity and ideas, and never had a bad word to say about anyone. Just always good things. And I look back at Jeff, and I have to say, it's just a shame that this movement doesn't have more Jeff Winstons. And I look at what you guys have got, and my hope, and I know that Jeff has only just tragically passed, but my hope is that you guys will carry on his work, that you guys will 100% keep flying, Jeff's flag, keep the flame burning, because fundamentally, what Jeff has started is too good for us to give up on. And not only is it too good for us to give up on, it would be such a sad loss for everything that Jeff has built to be lost. And for me, keeping the flame burning, keeping the White Art Collective going, keeping Jeff's legacy alive is an important thing. And hearing his grand ideas and his huge vision for what you guys were doing, I think the greatest tribute to Jeff wouldn't really just be this show or the things we're talking about now, but would be for you guys to double down on what you're doing and to carry Jeff's vision through to fruition. Because I'm sure that Jeff's smiling down on us, and I think he would love nothing more than to see everything that he was building completed by his friends and people who he saw as his extended family.
Well, I can guarantee you that is what we'll do. It's just us, we're still sort of reeling from the shock of this tragedy, but there's already been discussions within the Pillar Artists group. And so I, for one, of course, am doing the show with Paul on Tuesdays. We'll be bringing in artists of all kinds, musicians, etc. I know that Nullis has been talking about starting up the poetry cast again. Jay LaDarc can talk about what she's going to be doing. Actually, Jay, why don't I hand the mic to you and you can speak to that a little bit, and then also to the things that Jeff said in that interview.
Yeah, I'll talk about Jeff for a minute here. He was, truly a visionary, and he had big plans and big ideas. And I think he's also the kind of person who could and definitely did see beyond his own lifetime and his own ambitions and his own dreams too. I think his goal was always to have a torch that could continue to be passed on. Obviously, this wasn't something that was purely for his own gain. It was for all of us. It was for our people, and it was a very beautiful thing that he accomplished and that he sought to accomplish. And, without him, we wouldn't be here. And I don't mean here for this stream. I mean, like, here is an artistic community, the work that he did kicked off so many other projects just by, inspiring other artists and letting, giving us kind of ideas of how to go about it, and helping connect us to each other in ways that we otherwise wouldn't have been. Jeff gave me a home within white nationalism that I didn't have before. He turned it into something that was actually truly cultural, and it wasn't just, political hot takes all day long forever on the internet. He brought us together for something that was so much more meaningful than that. And, we'll always be grateful to him for that.
Marvelous. And maybe tell us a little bit about the monthly White Art Challenge too. This is a good opportunity.
Yeah, I run something on Telegram called the Monthly White Art Challenge. And basically what we do is every month, sometimes we vote on it and sometimes I'm a tyrant. Every month we have a theme, and the goal is you submit a piece of art based on the theme. And the piece of art can really be anything. It doesn't have to, it can also be a craft. We have women who do embroidery and, other textile work. We have musicians, we have short story writers, we have poets, we have some absolutely incredible visual artists among us too, like people that put me to shame. It's a very beautiful community. I'm very proud to have brought them together. And again, that was something that was inspired by Jeff and his work as well. May I ask
about how many members do you have in that now?
About 165, I think.
Wow. And so let me pass the mic then to Paul and ask Paul, how many members do you have roughly in the Patriotic group?
I think we're currently on about 355, but I'm not sure if they're all creatives. Some of them just support the community, and there might be a few bots or deleted accounts that I need to sift through. But yeah, we got a good number, and I think we can tap into that.
So this is quite astonishing. Let's say, roughly, I don't know, at least 300, 400 creatives in one place, all for the movement. I feel that the movement, the White positive sphere is sitting on a gold mine in this regard. And so this is what I'm trying to do, is make a bridge between everyone out there in the movement who's fighting the good fight and our creatives. There's so much happening in these two worlds. So, and this is of course what Jeff was trying to do and had accomplished in so many good ways, but it's something that is ongoing. And I always appeal to the audience to be that bridge, to share these links, to subscribe to channels, to contribute to the artists, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's quite powerful and quite beautiful. Paul, were there any other comments on the interview with Jeff you wanted to add?
Yeah, he seemed to really understand how important the arts are, and you know, he was clearly clued up and a really self-educated guy. He obviously he learned off other people and read books, and that influenced his you know, his sort of strategic plan with the arts to almost reverse the tide of all the degenerative art that we have today.
Yeah.
So you know, that really came through.
Marvelous. Well, I'm going to play a short clip from when I had Jeff on one of my shows, Afternoon at the Museum. I should kickstart that show again. It's just a show in which I invite people to come and peruse the art collections of different Western art museums. And it just brings a little casual, cozy stream culture and, you know, into our sphere. So this specific clip here, Jeff gets to talk more about his family and his pride in being a Midwesterner. So there's some really nice insights into Jeff, the man, you know, and his family life. So we'll just go on mute for a second and take a listen. It's hard to think, you know, what kind of hardships they must have gone through to settle those lands. And but what's your impression of this piece, Jeff?
Well, I like it a lot. You know, I agree that it's very dynamic. It speaks a lot to me personally because as an American, like, well, I grew up, I'll give you a little background. You know, I grew up, my dad is the kind of guy who he still watches almost exclusively old cowboy movies, you know. And so he very much grew up on that. And I mean, we've literally got a picture of John Wayne on our mantle, you know, like prominently featured. So
Wow.
he really loves, you know, that era. And it very much is especially during that period of time, like from the 50s and 60s, there were a lot of like films and TV shows about the cowboys. You don't see anything like that today, but it was very much a romanticization of that period. And yeah, I agree. This painting, just the ones I've seen from him so far, seem fine with that. But it really does. I mean, it speaks to me deeply because, you know, I'm a founding stock American. My family's on my dad's side's been here since like 1621. And I feel a deep connection to the frontier, kind of, you know, the frontier and pioneer spirit, and also the Wild West. Like those things I connect to a lot, you know. And I feel too, it's interesting to be discussing this period of art because I feel like a lot of people, well, you don't really hear much about it. I'm not as well versed in those circles as you are, but it seems like something that's not really taken terribly seriously as being you know, as legitimate as other periods, or maybe a lot of European art and things like that. But these kinds of things speak very deeply to me personally because of what they symbolize.
Absolutely. That what you said is so powerful in and of itself, that you're in a sense like a descendant of this painting almost in some regard. You know, there's something about the spirit of that kind of man versus nature, the sense of, you know, I'm going to go forth and you know, occupy the land that I'm going to create my world and expand. And it's something powerful, and you can see how such ideas and representing white people in this manner is the exact opposite of the narrative that we have everywhere in this anti-white media. So I'm interrupting myself there. It is a really beautiful experience to be with Jeff and kind of have that experience together. And I think the point that is really standing out here in that particular clip is that Jeff has the pioneer spirit, that his being a Midwesterner in some regard has come through in the contemporary sense. So there's just something charming about that. Maybe I'll ask Jay if she wants to respond a little bit to that clip. Jeff is basically our John Wayne.
Yeah, definitely. He definitely did have that pioneer spirit, and I think that that's what led him to build this little empire of the White Art Collective for us. You know.
Yeah, well said. Paul, what were your thoughts?
Well, I was quite taken back by his connection to, you know, the founding fathers, really, of America, and you know, that obviously played a huge part in his passion and commitment to preserving what his ancestors essentially built.
Exactly. His family goes way back to the beginning of the founding of America, which is quite a powerful motivator, you can imagine. And you can imagine how, you know, seeing all of the kind of Marxist dialectic and all the, you know, colonizer and all the kind of labels that are put on us, how you know, he would rebel against that, thinking through, you know, all of the struggles that his personal family went through to get where they are today. So, Mark, would you like to comment a little bit on that?
I think it's really interesting listening to Jeff and some of Jeff's thoughts and feelings. And it's also interesting that I didn't think he'd be the kind of guy who was, you know, into sort of Westerns and things like that. I didn't really associate that with somebody who was more artistic. And it's quite interesting that Jeff is motivated, or was motivated by that kind of things. And I feel kind of sad now because I'm sort of getting to know him tonight on this stream more than I did when he was here, because I didn't know his personal opinions. We never sat down, we never met in person. And I just wish I'd got to know him more.
Yeah, these are sort of the tragic things. This is part of what my hope was with this show too, was to kind of, you know, look behind the curtain a little bit and get to know Jeff as a person. Let that be a kind of a monument for the future through this video. But I think there's also another interesting point here about how he used his personal sense of nationalism to respond and create art and bring that into his art, into his overall vision. And I can say, being one of the pillar members of the White Art Collective, this was a constant with him. Like, that kind of Midwestern pioneer spirit was really inspiring to me personally. So yeah, it's quite wonderful. Let's take a look at another clip here. Just gonna mute, and then we can respond to this. This is Jeff Winston on the after party.
Yeah, I've been throwing around the concept of traditional futurism, and that's certainly not something I came up with. And you and I had talked previously, and you had brought up archaeofuturism with is it Guillaume Faye? Is that how you say his name?
Faye. Yes, or Faye. And he just passed away, actually.
Yeah, I saw that. Rest in peace. But yeah, so the way I kind of view this is that essentially we have to, I think it's the job of artists to create, to kind of envision a future. And this has actually been done a lot. You know, there's a lot of Hollywood films and books that are, you know, kind of like futuristic, is, you know, the future is the setting. And I think, and most of the time they're done in a very dystopian way. And this, there's kind of, I think, a self-fulfilling prophecy about that. When people are inundated with the idea that the only possible future, and they see this in movies, they see it in, they read it in books, they also hear it in the news media, you know, that they're going to lose their majority status, and that the future, we're going to eat like bug protein bars or whatever. I don't know. I keep seeing more and more about these, this kind of like crazy futuristic thing where they're trying to encourage people to kind of the global push towards, you know, eating certain things and living in tinier and tinier housing and all this kind of thing. There's just this overarching, not a very hopeful future, not one that I like or want to be part of, and certainly not one I want to leave
for my children or grandchildren, or our children or grandchildren at large, as far as white Western kind goes. And so I think it's the job of artists to paint a positive vision of a future, to where we find a way to organically bring technology, and from the current situation we're in, like, also put traditional values. Obviously it's not going to look exactly like it did in the past. We're not going to act exactly how we did in the past, like in the 50s or in the 80s, or in previous eras before that. It's going to look different, it's going to feel a little different, but if we do it right, it should still be an honest and organic expression of who we are in that moment. And I think as artists, we need to paint that vision, and essentially, and then get the rest of our people and our thinkers and our inventors and our philosophers, and we're going to come together and figure out how we meme that future, that better future, into being. So I think that that's ultimately how, kind of like, the role that art plays in that is setting it up so we can, first of all, even think that it's possible. Because right now, I think a lot of people, like normies, and and even a lot of probably like regular conservatives, it's almost like they've just went ahead and given up the fight. They're like, yeah, this is just the way things are going to go, and it's too bad robots are going to take all our jobs. I guess that's just the future of the world. But that's all they've ever really been told, is that it can only be that way, like the Skynet, kind of way, where AI takes over and that kind of thing. So I think it's our job to paint a better future, and then figure out how we're going to meme it into reality.
So that's amazing, because that speaks very much to what Mark was talking about with a positive vision. And you can just sense the energy in his voice when he talks about that. I think it really energizes me as an artist, and I think it should energize the audience as well. Just some really exciting concepts here. And I certainly totally agree. I think very much that art in some way is immortality, that an artist, they leave a legacy. And what could be more important than leaving a legacy and a statement that is about our people, our cause, and what we did in this time to fight against white replacement and all the forces we're working against. Paul, would you like to respond a bit to some things that Jeff was saying in that clip?
I mean, the guy was obviously very intelligent, and I kind of have a bit of regret, to be honest, that I didn't really sort of reach out as much, it's kind of come to this, and we didn't cross paths sooner. I could have picked his brains a lot more, and even obviously as the kind of leader of the patriotic arts community, I think he could have really rubbed off on me a lot, and give me some inspiration myself. So a bit of regret there, to be honest. So I will be sifting through a lot of his material to trying to get some motivation, and kind of just essentially pick the brains of what it was exactly he was trying to create, why, and then just try and help build the arts communities in a similar way.
And certainly you and I are going to discuss that as we do our regular show on Tuesdays. So just to let everyone in the audience know again, Tuesdays, Paul and I are going to be doing a show. And then also another quick announcement that next Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, there will be a memorial show for the White Art Collective. So members of the White Art Collective will come on, share their thoughts, their art, their music, etc. So please, stay tuned to that. Let me pass the mic to Jay. Jay, would you like to share some thoughts?
Yeah, he mentions memeing this reality into being that we want to see, and that's just so correct. That's exactly, kind of what our job is as artists, is to reinforce our identity and reinforce our vision on the world, to surround not just ourselves, but our people. Art is about the person who is perceiving it. It's not about the artist. And that is, I think, a big problem with modernism and the way it perceives art, where everything's about the artist and their tragic backstory, but it's not. Art is about the viewer. Art is about the culture. Art is about reinforcing and creating culture. And Jeff was a man who understood that.
Perfectly said. I always say that Andy Warhol is the antichrist of art, and that, turning it into narcissism and a cult of personality, it's just one more layer of alienation to push out the general public and to, kind of steal away our culture from our people, etc. So that's something to say there. Mark, let me pass the mic to you. Any comments on that?
Well, this just sums up everything I was saying about Jeff, about his incredible spirit. This is a guy who was clearly acutely aware of some of the negative feelings people have within this movement. He was acutely aware of how people get blackpilled. And here he is talking about how to overcome these feelings with positivity, how to overcome the negative malaise that can take over your life, can take over your mind. And he's saying, look, we can be so much more, and we can achieve so much more, and we can lift ourselves up, by being positive through art. And I think this is the interesting thing for me. I think about what must have inspired our ancestors in very, very dark times. So our ancestors went through an awful lot, war, famine, disease, and they stood up against overwhelming odds on numerous occasions and overcame those odds. And I think to myself, what helped them through that? And to a large degree, it must have been the inspirational art and music and cultural influences that surrounded them, that kept them buoyant in these difficult times. And I think to myself, this is incredible listening to Jeff, because he was tapping into that. And he was wanting to spread that positivity to everybody. And fundamentally, I think that is something that makes him stand out as a somebody in this movement who wanted the right thing, who wanted to lift people up and wanted to see the positives in life and not just the negatives.
That's very inspiring, the way you put that. And the fact that he did tap into it is something that we as artists have to take inspiration in. And I think it's also a kind of magnetism that drew us to him and then pulled it out of us. Because when you see the arts within our culture, there's a very strong reliance or reference to a lot of Greco-Roman sculptures and architecture and a lot of tradition. When people get to know the artists in LaDarc's group, they're going to see a lot of beautiful, wonderful traditional artists coming out, or the artworks that they're doing. It's just so enriching. And part of the kind of the state of the modern man and how we're living is because we are cut off from the nutrition of our spiritual soul, of our arts, I don't know how to express that, but we draw our energy from our ancestors, from our civilization, from all the great deeds, all the great stories, all the traditions, the myths. And what carries that on but the arts, right? It is an important anthropological element to any society. So when our enemies come in and they sabotage and demoralize them, that says a lot. Our enemies know that in order to crush our spirits, they have to co-opt our arts. And so I can't overemphasize the importance of the arts in our community to people who are around and in the white positive movement. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Mark, and you're much better at expressing it than I am. But let's take another look. Now, this is very interesting because this specific discussion is Jeff's comments on the state of the art movement. So the segue here is really perfect. So let's just mute ourselves for a second.
Today, we just wanted to talk about what happened is actually Donald Kent yesterday had posted an interesting comment in the WAC chat over on Telegram. And I think it's kind of something that a lot of people have been feeling for a long time. So I thought it'd be kind of good to just have a discussion, just invite people on from, audience and artist and whatever to come on and discuss these things, because I've been feeling it. I think a lot of people have been black-pilled and just trying to figure out what's going on with the overall movement and how the arts relate to that. A lot of people in these spheres, WAC and other organizations, and just artists who are adjacent and whatnot. So anyway, I was just going to start out very quickly I'm going to read what Donald posted yesterday so that people can get an idea of what exactly kind of the framing for the discussion is. So Donald said, I feel like the movement has become a gigantic social club. Not trying to be a downer, and I love my friends in the movement, but I feel like we are diverting most of our energy into socializing, hot takes, news reactions, philosophizing, etc. I'm not referring to maintaining our social emotional health. Of course, we need that, but I don't see any significant change/progress. I'm looking for the next chapter of the movement, implementing strategy, producing measurable results. I don't have time, energy, nor the inspiration to keep doing what we are doing unless I see a clear path to success. Yes, I'm deeply frustrated with this, but not pointing the finger at anyone. Please share your thoughts on this topic. All right. So anyway, a bunch of people chimed in on that. It was like the most active. The WAC chat over on Telegram has been for quite a while, and a lot of people had a lot of thoughts. So I wanted to do this stream so we could invite people on to kind of discuss this, because I think it's important. It's been that way for a while. Just general overall, I don't know. It seems like since last fall, people started getting kind of black-pilled. I don't know exactly what it was. I know here in the States, like the Biden administration started really like cracking down on people. And I think it became clear that maybe that had something to do with that. I was thinking about it earlier. But also just that kind of thing. But also it seems like just the movement, quote unquote, like kind of stalled perhaps. But I know with WAC particularly, we, like at the end of last year, there were some doxings and different things like that, and things were going really well, and then support seemed to kind of like drop off toward the end of last year in a number of ways for what the kind of stuff we were doing, and we've been trying to adapt to that. But I just want to quickly give my thoughts on what Donald said and kind of my personal feelings on where stuff is real quick, and then I'll let other people chime in and give their perspective. So my thing is this, right? Everybody talks about the movement, and usually when they're talking about the movement, they're talking about the overwhelmingly political side of what is happening. The groups that are largely the influencers, the podcasters who, are creating like mostly political content. That seems to me to be the case, what most people are talking about. And I feel like ever since, the political and these ideas are what drew me first to these spheres. And there really wasn't much of an art scene or an art movement going on. There was stuff, but it wasn't really super predominant. There was not a lot of stuff happening, which is why I started WAC to begin with, and to try to like foster more of a community of artists and encourage people to come together, kind of create, people like-minded people making similar kind of art, etc. But I feel like we're basically the artistic side of things has always been under the wing of the political, or at least we act like that. We look that way, like we're looking to these guys like we're under their wing. And I just think that's not the right way to understand it. Like the arts and culture sphere, I believe it has to stand on its own. It's its own thing. Artists are a different archetype than the kind of people who are generally interested in and get involved in politics and talk about politics all the time. There is overlap, of course, and the flip side of that is that a lot of those people, a lot of the people that we would say are in the movement, quote unquote, don't really
understand the arts. They don't really understand the mechanics, so to speak, of how art and culture works. So they're not ever going to be able to like really support it or push it in the way that it has to be built up and pushed. That's really up more to the people who really are in the art and culture sphere to build our own organizations. And another part of this is to professionalize them, because we can't, this is something I've been trying to work on, figure out with WAC, is like, you can't just do this voluntarily forever. Like you can't go up against what we're up against. We can't take back our culture with volunteer power. It's just not realistic. A lot of people have this kind of like idea, this, it's a very kind of pie in the sky, like, oh, people do it. You create art for the love of art. But the reality is, you have to have mechanisms, you have to have organizations that can distribute what people do, that can promote what they do, that there's real funding behind it. And those things are absolutely necessary to have a real art movement. That's just a fact. And a lot of people don't like that. They think you're a grifter if you suggest that we should be able to try to make money and that we should get people to invest money in it. But that's just how it is, especially in the way things are set up now. You basically have to vote with your dollars to support if you want to see more of something. So those are some of the basics of my view on this. In my thinking and the direction I would like to go more with WAC and a new entity we're working on, WAC Media, is to focus more on higher end production, to not do, I think just people generally in the modern era, people are more focused on you want to create a lot of something. Like people do a lot of podcasting, people release a lot of stuff. We need to get back, in my opinion, and this is what I'm going to be doing, is focusing on doing more things that are, fewer things that are of a higher quality, that really stand out, and that really not just anybody could have made that film, not just anybody could make that song. I didn't just spit it out. I really took my time to craft it properly. And I personally think that's the direction that the overarching movement art side of it, again, the art and the political, I think should be viewed as separate entities. That's what we have to do. We have to professionalize. We have to make the highest possible quality stuff that we can. And we have to build our own structures for distributing it and getting it out there and promoting it. And it's up to us. Like the political guys cannot help us do that. I mean, they can, on some level, they can be like, yeah, good job, thanks. But like it's not their thing. They don't fully understand it. It's just, they're not ever going to be able to help us take that where it needs to go. We have to take it there by building our own stuff up. So anyway, I think that basically covers my general viewpoint on it, and I can go through more stuff as we go along. But I want to go ahead and guys.
So that was a pretty powerful statement that he made there about all like the professionalization of the arts. And I would very much think that should be the next step, for all of us in the arts. And I think actually this is something that Jay could speak to. I certainly have been freelancing on my own in the movement for a long time. My new book that I put out is a smattering of different freelance work that I've done for the movement. And a lot of us do that kind of on our own, but maybe I'll hand it to Jay to talk about the auction concept that you're working on.
Yeah. So obviously I completely wholeheartedly agree with Jeff and what he was saying about professionalizing the art and getting money flowing through our community in the arts, and trying to create mechanisms through spreading our arts and spreading our ideas and ultimately spreading our culture that way. And this is a conversation that we have often in the monthly White Art Challenge group, as well as we talk about this and we hammer these points home, and we try to encourage each other to charge fair prices for our work and for our time, because we are professionals. What we have is a skill. It's not something that everyone can do. And, of course, there's going to be times where we use our art as activism, and there's nothing wrong with that, but the arts are unfortunately kind of a line of work where there are a lot of people who seem to think that you don't necessarily deserve a living wage. that's just unfortunate. And, you know, that's probably just everywhere. I think everyone who's a freelancer and just about everything, you know, comes comes into contact with that kind of stuff. But I think that that's an attitude that is definitely falling off. And I think we can thank Jeff as well as other artists in the community who have stuck to their guns with that. But yeah, again, like trying to professionalize it a little bit more, trying to help people get work and network with each other. Who does not want to like work with people who don't hate them at this point? You know, we're all tired of being forced essentially to buy from people who hate us. So that's kind of the point of networking with all of us here. And yeah, I do want to go ahead and announce an auction that I am putting together through the monthly White Art Challenge. This is a charitable auction. Myself, other artists, and other creators and small business owners within our community are donating to have an auction to bring more money to High-Risk Fund and also to give back to the community. Our donations are our art, and basically the way it's going to work is we have several large pieces like paintings individually that people will be able to bid on, but I'm also creating bundles. There's going to be a his bundle and there's going to be a her bundle, and these are going to be full of things that honestly are going to make absolutely fantastic Yule and Christmas gifts. And there's also going to be a very large WAC original members collectors bundle. It's going to include CDs and signed artwork. So yeah, this is going to be done through Telegram. I'm basically going to create a very large group chat and use the new topics feature in it. Each topic is going to be the item to be bidded on. People can comment their bids. I'll also give people the option to bid via email if they don't want to comment on Telegram. But I'm hoping to have that up and going in a couple of weeks here. And, you know, I'm very inspired by all the help that High-Risk is getting, and I want to see her get more help. And I feel like this is a good way for some of us who don't necessarily make a whole lot of money and don't have a whole lot of money to be able to give back to her in a way that we can through our skills. It's also a way for us to give, for our community to give back to itself and to each other as well, because this is a good opportunity for potentially maybe somebody else who's struggling a little bit and loves a lot of this work. Maybe this is a good opportunity for them to get a gift basket full of stuff that they might not have been able to buy all of them individually on their own because it would have been too expensive. So I'm very excited for this. And I think it's exactly the sort of thing that Jeff would have liked to have seen happen, this kind of community building activity.
I applaud you. This is fabulous, and this needs to happen. I just want to remind people that the Give, Send, Go for High-Risk and the baby is still up, and please to contribute generously to that. The link is in the show notes below, so you can copy paste that, send it to your friends. We're deeply grateful for your support. This is, I mean, an unimaginable tragedy that it just, you know, blindsided all of us. And so we're deeply grateful to you. I think that the amount of money that has come in so far in such a short period of time is a very true testament to the power and kindness of our community and how people in our community have, you know, come together when tragedy occurs. So I feel that everybody listening to this show should really walk away with a very strong sense of family, you know, that this is working, and we are, you know, whatever disagreements or differences we have, when it comes down to the times like this, we can set that aside and we can share some love. So it's quite powerful and quite beautiful.
It is very white pilling to see the way that everybody has come together to be here for her. Because if there's anybody in this community who deserves our support, it's her. She's been nothing but one of the loveliest people who's brought nothing but beauty to this community, you know, and to see so many people just coming out to help her, it's just very white pilling. You know, it's so easy to get caught up in the ugly comments people say to each other, you know, on the internet. But at the end of the day, you know, it's the people who are coming together for each other like this who really matter, and that the rest of it can really be ignored. And this just shows us that there are so many truly beautiful people in this community, and we're worth fighting for.
It's the silver lining around the cloud here, for sure. I think there's also more to discuss for the four of us. about the state of the movement too. That video is a little bit older because I think it has something to do with when the Biden administration came in, that there was a tectonic shift in everything. And so we're all kind of responding and wondering where are we going from here, etc. Let me pass the mic to Mark and see what your thoughts are on that clip.
Well, I think that clip is very, very powerful. And Jeff dealt with that in such a sunny way, but he was dealing with the kind of rubbish that content creators get on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Oh, you should produce these albums, you should produce this art, you should produce these t-shirts, you should produce hours and hours of content, but you should do it all for free, because anyone that makes anything and asks for money in return is a grifter. And what you should actually go and do is get a normal paying job, work 9 to 5, then come in and somehow work full time for the movement in your spare time as well. Because that's the only way we can advance this movement. The only way we can advance this movement is by all working in our spare time, never having anyone work full time, never having anyone dedicate their life to this cause. Yeah. That's the kind of rubbish we hear all the time. And Jeff dealt with that in a sunny way, which says a lot about him as a person, because he didn't want the White Art Collective or this movement to be a cottage industry of people, of tired, worn down people coming in from dead end jobs and then working another 5, 6, 7 hours until they're absolutely exhausted, and then getting a few hours sleep before going back to that dead end job even more exhausted. He wanted people to be happy, financially secure, and so they could be able to focus on their art, focus on their love for their race, and to produce this wonderful, uplifting content without having financial worries. And again, that says so much about him as a person. He had a vision, and that vision was not just for the good of himself, but for the good of the collective, for the good of content creators who were going to go on to inspire generations of activists fighting for our people.
Beautifully said. Yeah, it's a lot. It really is. But what's amazing, though, is that because of his positive energy, his quote love for his people, like the first song of the show, it's like he has an eternal spring inside him of this energy that comes from that love of our people and our lands and our culture and everything that we're doing. So I feel that this is one of the essential purposes of art is to tap that spring within each of us and to let that beautiful energy come out and help us survive these times and not just survive them, but to prosper, to be successful, to move on to victory. So it's very inspiring. Paul, what would you like to add to the conversation?
Well, I thought it was really important, the point you made about us being a separate entity. And I mean, it's so true, because the likes of Mark Collett, he's very much involved in politics. He's well spoken. He understands processes very well. He thinks differently. He's very organized. He's a great speaker, for example. As creatives, we think differently. We're perhaps a bit more quirky in many ways, but we need to pander to our strengths ultimately as a collective and as a subsect of collective within that collective. So yeah, I mean, and then having the support for the artists and creatives, I think that's something that needs to be stressed. And the Patriotic Arts Community website actually has a directory on it now, which has a small amount of creatives there already. But the intention was to create a directory of artists and companies where we can really start to support each other and and to have that as a go-to place where, you know, the artists can be supported, where, you know, they can be given the work and we can start funding each other and helping each other. I think these kind of are like spokes on a wheel, and when we get all these things in place, we can really start to, you know, roll forwards.
Beautifully done. So what we're going to do is wrap it up here. I'm just going to play one more song by Jeff from the White Art Collective Music Festival 2022. I was very fortunate to play the first one, 2021, one of the best experiences of my life. Really proud of that. And so, and this is also another example of Jeff bringing all of his talents together, bringing all of these artists together, and doing something IRL. You know, that's quite a great thing. So let me quickly thank each of you, Paul, Jay, and Mark, for joining in this really momentous time. And this is really important that we kind of control the narrative of where the White Art Collective is going, how our arts relate to our culture and our cause, and that we will, you know, continue on and carry the torch and pay homage to Jeff. So also to the audience, quickly remember again, the Give, Send, Go fund is still open. So please do contribute to that for Hireth and the baby. Maybe just some closing words, and then we'll play the song and wrap it up. Mark, would you like to begin?
I just want to again say how sad I am that Jeff has passed, and we'll all miss him dearly. I think I've expressed just what kind of person Jeff was during this stream. So my final thoughts are going to be for Hireth and for Jeff's daughter. I can't imagine what Hireth is going through to have lost a husband and the father of her child, especially with the baby being so young.
Right.
This must be like a nightmare, a living nightmare. So please, if you can, do donate. She absolutely deserves it. And I hope the community comes together around her, looks after her, treasures her, and that we help cushion the blow for her in any way we can. And also my thoughts go out to Jeff's wonderful, beautiful daughter, for her never to know her dad, never to speak to her dad, never to share special moments with her father. It's genuinely heartbreaking. But I truly do hope that she is brought up in a world surrounded by the music, the art, and the works of Jeff Winston. And not only the works of Jeff Winston, but also the works of all of those who he helped and who he inspired. And I hope that that, in some small way, will make that girl understand just what her father meant to all of us and just how loved and important he was in life.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Jay, would you like to make a final comment?
Yeah, I just want to go ahead and thank this community so much for pulling together and being here for her during this time. This is just, I can't even imagine, you know, going through what Hireth is going through right now and how hard it must be. You know, my heart is absolutely breaking for her. And just seeing the way people have pulled together to support her, it's been a beautiful thing to behold. And, you know, sometimes it's when things are darkest that you can see the brightest of lights. I don't know, that probably sounded dumb, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, it brings us together. Tragedy certainly does that. Paul, would you like to wrap it up?
Yeah, obviously it's a tragic time, and you know, heart goes out to Hireth and her daughter, and you know, our thoughts and prayers are with her. But ultimately, I'm motivated to help continue Jeff's work and you know, do all that I can. And I obviously would like to encourage others to support creatives, and also to just get more involved, share our artworks, and things like that. Just everyone can do their bit in some way, shape, or form. No one is irrelevant.
Beautifully done. Yeah, so I just, before I play Jeff's song and close out the show, I just want to ask everyone, please say a prayer for Jeff's soul. say a prayer for Jeff's soul from your heart, and also for his family who's grieving very much, and his friends who are grieving now. Let us come together and do great things and carry the torch forward. We will all meet again in the halls of our ancestors. So let's have some good stories to tell when we get there.
This one's called Ode to Robert E. Lee. This one goes out to the general.
Robert E. Lee was a proud man from Virginia. Military academy, a master of strategy, a true leader. A distinguished gentleman, he fought and he won the hand of Miss Custis. Martha Washington's great-grand girl, her daddy didn't want a soldier more heartache. A house full of girls and boys, filled with the loving noise of family. Robert served in Mexico. He was often far from home for country. Split across the Mason-Dixon line, led to a war in time on civil. Lincoln offered him full command, but he decided to take a stand for Dixie. Mary said he cried tears of blood due to his loyal love for both sides. At the Battle of Antietam, outnumbered and way outgunned, they fought like hell. Ulysses and Robert E. met to make a peace decree, no more bloodshed. At the Battle of Charlottesville, many men they showed their steel for the general. In August of 17, Rebs and Yanks we reconvened, no more brother wars. And since they gave us hell, we're gonna hear the rebel yell, ah, woo. And since they gave us hell, we're gonna hear the rebel yell, ah, woo. And since they gave us hell, we're gonna hear the rebel yell, ah, woo.
That's for the general.